The secret wealth of dozens of world leaders, from the King of Jordan to the Russian president, has been exposed in one of the biggest ever leaks of financial documents, dubbed the Pandora Papers. BBC Panorama, in a year-long joint investigation involving more than 650 journalists, has had access to 12 million documents, sparking allegations of corruption, money laundering and tax avoidance. The US has outlined a strategy for tackling trade tensions with China, but it's decided not to drop tariffs imposed by former President Trump. The US says it's concerned that subsidised steel and solar panels are squeezing out competition. And 3 major social media sites and apps owned and operated by Facebook have suffered an outage affecting millions of users. Instagram and WhatsApp are offline, along with Facebook itself.
In Japan, Parliament elects 64-year-old Fumio Kishida Prime Minister. Kishida says he plans to dismiss the lower house of Parliament and call for new elections this month. In Stockholm, officials announced that American scientists David Julius and Ardem Patapoutian won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for their research in human sensation. North and South Korea re-establish a communications hotline, a move the South says could improve relations. And in Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is sworn in for a second 5-year term as conflict continues in the country's Tigray area.
Japan's new leader is vowing to do all he can to fight the coronavirus and get the nation's economy back in shape. Kishida Fumio has been elected prime minister by the Diet and formed his cabinet. More than half its members are serving in a ministerial role for the first time.
右の結果、岸田文雄君を衆議院規則第18条第2項により、本院において内閣総理大臣に指名することに決まりました。
Kishida held the foreign minister post for more consecutive years than anyone in post-war history. He took the helm of the main ruling Liberal Democratic Party last week after Suga Yoshihide opted not to seek a second term as leader. 2 members of Suga's cabinet will continue their same duties as foreign minister and defense minister. Kishida has created a new post, the minister in charge of economic security. In his first news conference as prime minister, Kishida said his priority is to take all-out anti-coronavirus measures.
We will thoroughly analyze the measures taken so far and examine what has become a bottleneck in dealing with the crisis. Based on the results, we will drastically strengthen crisis response measures, such as those to curb people's movements in times of emergency and to secure hospital beds. We will also strengthen the government's ability to function as a control tower for crisis management.
Kishida says he'll create a new form of capitalism to achieve a virtuous cycle of growth and distribution. He says his economic policies will ensure more equitable distribution of wealth. Kishida says the long-standing issue with North Korea is his top foreign relations priority.
The abduction issue is the most important issue. I will make all-out efforts to realize the return of all abductees as soon as possible. I am prepared to face North Korean leader Kim Jong-un without any conditions.
One of the new prime minister's first orders of business will be a lower house election, which he plans to call for October 31st. Kishida's Liberal Democratic Party and its junior coalition partner, Komeito, currently control both houses of the Diet. Now, a Hiroshima atomic bomb survivor living in Canada says she sent a letter to Japan's new prime minister to urge the country to join the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Setsuko Thurlow made a speech at the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize award ceremony for the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN. She referred to her 4-year-old nephew who was killed in the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in 1945. In the letter to Kishida, she disclosed the nephew was Kishida Eiji, a relative of the prime minister. The letter says his death and those of many others should not be in vain. It also says Japan's joining the treaty would have ripple effects throughout the world and even put pressure on nuclear-armed nations. It asks if the prime minister, whose constituency is in Hiroshima, does not decide to sign, who would? Thurlow called on Japan's government to make clear abolishing nuclear weapons is a top priority and seek to join the pact. She also called on the government to take part as an observer at a conference of the parties to the treaty scheduled for March. Turning to the coronavirus situation here in Japan, days after Japan lifted its state of emergency, daily new infections in the capital have dropped below 100 for the first time this year. But officials say it's still too early for people to lower their guard. Tokyo officials reported 87 new infections on Monday. This was the first time in 11 months the daily tally was in the double digits. A main reason for the decline is Japan's vaccine rollout. Health authorities say more than 60% of the population have been fully vaccinated. The figure for the elderly is nearly 90%. Officials now aim to inoculate younger people. This vaccination center in Tokyo has begun offering shots to 16 and 17-year-olds.
Finally, I've been vaccinated after my parents managed to get a reservation for me. I feel secure, and many people should get theirs too.
Authorities in an area near Tokyo are taking other measures targeting small children who are not eligible for vaccines. Officials in Kanagawa Prefecture are distributing antigen test kits to households with children in elementary school or younger.
It's difficult to go to the hospital when you have small children, so it's nice to be able to get tested at home.
Officials say they plan to take various measures to avoid cluster infections at elementary and nursery schools. Now to western Japan, where tens of thousands of households in Wakayama City continue to have no water supply after a water pipe bridge collapsed. Part of the bridge over the Kinokawa River fell down on Sunday afternoon. The collapse stopped water supply to about 60,000 households, or nearly 40% of the city's total. Water trucks have been mobilized to deal with the situation. Officials say the cause of the collapse has yet to be determined. We move now to Sweden, where officials have announced this year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. The award goes to two scientists based in the United States. Their groundbreaking discoveries involve how we sense things like the sun's heat or the touch of grass on our feet.
The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet has today decided to award the 2021 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to David Julius and Ardem Patapoutian for their discoveries of receptors for temperature and touch.
The Nobel Assembly says David Julius identified a sensor in the nerve endings of the skin that responds to heat. He utilized what's called capsaicin, a compound derived from chili peppers that induces a burning sensation. Ardem Patapoutian used pressure-sensitive cells to discover a novel class of sensors in the skin and internal organs. Nobel officials say the discoveries increased our understanding of how our nervous system senses heat, cold, and touch, allowing us to perceive and adapt to the world around us. The knowledge is being used to develop treatments for a wide range of disease conditions, including chronic pain. In other news, the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden is unveiling its strategy for reviewing its trade relationship with China. U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai will speak about the plan on Monday. Washington and Beijing reached a Phase 1 trade deal in January last year under the previous administration. That phase called on China to expand imports of U.S. farm products. Senior administration officials say the current trade relationship does not meet the needs of American workers and businesses. The administration stresses its objective is not to escalate trade tensions with China. It aims to place importance on their countries communicating with each other to ensure healthy competition. The officials say Tai will resume direct engagement with her counterpart in China in the coming days. Turning to India, where 8 people were killed after violence broke out during a farmers' protest in the north of the country. Local media say Sunday's clashes in Uttar Pradesh erupted after a car linked to a federal minister hit and killed 2 demonstrators. The farmers were taking part in a rally against federal farm laws. The situation escalated after farmers set vehicles on fire. Farm unions have vowed to step up their protests in the coming days. Hundreds of thousands of Indian farmers have taken part in protests for over 10 months on the borders of the capital, New Delhi. They're calling for the repeal of 3 farm laws the federal government passed in September last year. They say the laws only benefit major private companies in the agricultural sector and will shrink subsidies. The government says the laws will help farmers sell their produce anywhere in the country at better prices. Next, the celebrated Trans-Siberian Railway has long been more than just a scenic voyage across thousands of kilometers. It also delivers mobile medical care across rural Russia. Now the line is being developed further as part of a push to carry more commercial cargo. NHK World's Andrei Deka reports.
The Trans-Siberian Railway is a lifeline of the Russian economy. Half of the cargo transported both inside and outside the country goes through it. Coal and oil are among the freight. Now Russia is ramping up efforts to reform its logistic network connecting Asia with Europe.
We increased the throughput of the Trans-Siberian Railway. We have been talking a lot about this lately, and a lot is being done, but more needs to be done.
Behind the drive, it's a growing demand for the rail freight due to a surge in the cost of shipping. As international trade recovers from a downturn during the pandemic, the call for container ships has boomed. Russian Railways is replacing old tracks and laying new lines. It's also straightening lines that pass through mountainous territory. It has bored new tunnels and is creating multiple lines. The company aims to increase the distance a freight train can cover in a day by 30% within 3 years. A Russian Railways executive says the reforms have been a success so far.
The volume of cargo is in fact surging. The figure has doubled from 2 years ago, and we will continue to increase that.
The Trans-Siberian Railway is gearing up to become a major logistic artery for the post-coronavirus era. Andrei Deka, NHK World, Vladivostok.
Residents of Hokkaido in northern Japan saw a series of storms engulf the region on Monday, including a possible tornado. Our meteorologist John Thunnell explains the situation in a World Weather Report.
Hello, we saw a strong thunderstorm or set of thunderstorms rolling through Hokkaido as we went through Monday afternoon. Notice these lines of pink even showing up. And here's a look at the video to give you an idea of the impacts of this storm, as a possible tornado appeared in the Kamikawa region of Hokkaido around 1 o'clock in the afternoon Monday. Several structures, glass windows, and cars have been damaged, while some trees were battered, and you can also see the power lines too. Cold air aloft along with warm, humid air near the ground has caused very unstable weather. Torrential rain also hit Hokkaido and also led to a disruption of traffic. The same pattern of the stationary frontal boundary will bring some unstable weather for the Tohoku region of Japan as we go through Tuesday. That frontal boundary also extending back toward the Korean Peninsula, so we are talking about some rain, maybe even some storms, so be on the lookout for that. We have a high pressure system that's helping to bring in a southerly flow. That's going to juice up the front and bring some instability as we go throughout the day on Tuesday. So looking at some wet weather in Seoul with a high of 24 on Tuesday. Tokyo still feeling like summer, at least for the next couple of days, and then things are going to start cooling off just a bit for the latter half of the week. Down toward the Philippines, looking at a tropical system that's going to keep things very active. Here's a look at North America, the desert Southwest, looking at a cut-off low pressure system slowly moving in. That's going to help bring some of the rain into the region. The eastern seaboard of the United States, looking at a couple areas of low pressure, and as that moves through, looking at some rain to go through Monday and also into Tuesday from New York down toward places like Atlanta, looking at a high of 19 in New York, 27 in D.C., 23 in Atlanta. Looking at some rain also into the Pacific Northwest on Tuesday, highs into the mid-teens, but have the umbrellas nearby. That's a look at your forecast. Hope you have a good day wherever you are.